was on a project that Camille suggested. And before, they felt, she's in our PTOT office, they felt sometimes the flows with 5 different offices, when one person was stepping in to another office that flowed over to the medical office building, they felt the workflow wasn't very well done. And they maybe make some suggestions. So Sam, Janetta, and Donna Knopf were very kind to let us come and critique their office, which I thought was very nice. But before we get started, let our team introduce themselves.
I'm Hollis Sandlin. I'm the manager of Central Sterile.
Julie Lakes, Decision Support Services.
Serena Jackson, Environmental Services Dispatcher.
Camille Sorrells, Physical Therapist, and MOB.
Gary Henson, the #1 best imaging center in the network. We were rated by Press Game patient satisfaction. And I happen to be in St.
And I trained them very, very well.
And yes, we listened to this also.
Okay, what Gary and myself did was we went over to the MOB to see what their current process is at the front desk, and we did some observing with the receptionist there who took care of the patient intakes. And currently, the process there is what we see happening at the front desk is that with the check-in with the patients, confirming appointments and insurance, sending electronic plan of care, and chart preps, and scheduling of patients and entering patient charts. So that was some of the things that we wanted to observe what was going on at the desk that made the flow work, that wasn't working smoothly there. So we wanted to see if there could be maybe some observation, but some changes to make it a little bit more simple or run a little bit smoother.
One of my duties with them is to help front-end offices get started now, so I felt kind of like I knew what they were doing. I found a lot of the processes were the same as they go in any offices, whether it be at one of the hospital offices or the medical the physician offices. They, when the patient checks in, when they arrive, most of that process is the same. They also confirm appointments with patients, which is pretty much the same. They do some chart prep and stuff, which is also the same. And they schedule appointments. However, we did find there are extra duties with some of their different things. When they check in the patient, there's additional paperwork that they need to take care of with the Medicare and the Medicaids. They also, when they're scheduling, have to call not only to make sure the insurance is taken at their office, they're required to make sure that insurance authorizes the number of visits. So when they're talking to these patients, they also have to confirm that these visits are still authorized and they can go through that. I know also they have another duty to do. The therapist, after the patient comes in for the first consult, the therapist will devise a plan of care, and it's up to the front desk person to make sure that that is given to the doctor as it comes back, and it's in the chart and authorized and that's ready to go. So we just find out that most of the processes are the same, but they do have additional paperwork, and that's not done at other offices because of the nature of the therapy and stuff. So they also have to print the schedule for the day. They do a lot of different busy work that they have to do, and we find that each person is, well, there were 3, and I think they lost one, but they would be defined because, of course, their first, and which they handle very well, as busy as they are. They always greet the patient, make sure the patient's felt welcome. And they would find, sometimes they'd be on the phone with insurance companies, and I don't know if you've had to deal a lot, but I know you try to get something authorized or checking on something, and you're on hold sometimes for a very long time. So they have to stop, take care of the patients there. So they're a very busy office.
Okay, so as part of our training on LAA, we tried ALA. We just wanted to implement some of the things that we've learned here. So we did the Visio. We also did some brainstorming. We did interviews with the front desk staff to see what they might think is maybe going on with their process flow that could be changed, or the things that could be identified that don't flow smoothly. We won't go through all these things, but we keyed in on some of these ones, probably more towards the bottom. The phone call study, because one of the comments during the interviews was that possibly they're spending a lot of time on phone calls, especially insurance calls, that might be preventing them from the rest of their workflow and from flowing smoothly. And we'll get into some of these things a little bit later with also looking at insurance companies and the payer mix that were in the office and the evaluation of the FTEs. So again, these were multiple things that we saw both with observation and with interviews of front desk staff. And we're going to evaluate further. Julie did a lot of work with the FTEs to evaluate that process, as well as the phone call analysis. Okay. So one of the things was that the front desk staff felt like we had a higher proportion of Medicare patients, and Medicare patients take a lot more time with paperwork. There's regulations with Medicare that require a little bit more paperwork, and they felt like that might be one of the things that was holding up the workflow at the MOB versus, say, Kenwood or Swartzwall. And we actually did an analysis here and found out that the Medicare and Medicaid at the MOB actually was the same or maybe even a little bit less. But one thing we did identify is that the self-pay patients, which include like financial assistance patients and other motor vehicle accident patients, was much higher. It was at 11% at the MOB versus the rest of the locations being at 5%. And that actually is something that could be a potential problem there with the workflow, because with the financial assistance patients, there is actual financial assistance paperwork that has to be taken care of, and that coverage has to be processed. So there is additional paperwork with the self-pay patients, and it is at a much higher percentage at the MOB. So that could be one issue with the workflow at the MOB.
One of the things that we found was the complaints of they're always on the phone, and that's why they can't seem to get all the tasks that they need to get done throughout the day accomplished. So what we did is we took the extensions that were at the MOB that they make the phone calls on, pulled a 2-week report of all of the phone calls in and out, and analyzed what they are actually going out and receiving, and we're able to take out the insurance lines and do an analysis on that. We're seeing that they're getting about 65 phone calls a day. It comes out to about 20 to 30 per registrar, and for an average of about 2.5 minutes. The insurance calls were about 4.5 minutes, but what we found was that's really a lot shorter than what they were perceiving. So, it may not have come, what we learned is that it may not have really gone down to as much of the phone calls as what they thought originally.
And let me just kind of step out and do the FTE analysis at each location. And what I did was acquire data from the budgeting department about the actual registrar FTEs and the budgeted registrar FTEs. And then I pulled visit information for the same time period. We looked at July to March of this fiscal year. And what we found was that the MOB and the MOB Pilates have combined FTEs for registrars. And what we found is that they take 36.7% of the total visits for that time period for all locations. And yeah, when you look at the actual FTEs for registrars, they only use 34.1%. So that kind of gives us a shortage here. What we would adjust, if we adjusted it to the average for all locations, which is 3,293 visits processed per registrar, we actually come up with a shortage of 0.19 registrars, which would amount to about 7.5 hours per week. So this was a little complicated. In April, they actually lost, I'm not sure if it's a 0.7 or 0.9 registrar FTE. It was 1.0. So it kind of leaves them with an overall even more of a shortage, anywhere from 1.09 to 1.58 FTEs. We also, when I looked at budgeted, it's kind of cut off over here. When I looked at budgeted, actually the budget distribution was a little off as well. They're way under budget on right now on the registrar FTEs, but they probably need to redistribute the budget amount. The budget should come down a little bit. If you kind of readjust the budget over here, right now we have 8.54 budgeted. And then if we adjust it to the average, actually comes out to be the same budget amount, just redistributes from the locations. What happens here is at Western Hills, we have an actual overutilization. So if you adjust the budget hours from Western Hills and a little bit from Anderson, you actually end up having more of the registrar FTE budget for the MOB Pilates location. It's still, the budget would also remain the same at 8.54. So it's really just a redistribution based on the number of visits they have. The conclusion that we made was that they had a shortage.
I'll bet they didn't know that.
Our recommendation, first recommendation based on this analysis is that they should adjust the FTE ratio to match all the other sites based on the average number of visits per registrar, which is 3,293.
One other thing that we decided as a recommendation to help with the whole workflow if we don't go with the FTE is also that there is a real team effort to get work done daily, but maybe not necessarily in the best organized manner. So one idea we had is that they should possibly group certain tasks together instead of the team effort with just, can you cover this, can you cover this, but actually get together and have assignments for daily activities that are supposed to be accomplished by each FTE at the front desk. Rather than at the end of the day, kind of sitting there with a pile of work trying to figure out which person's going to be allocated that assignment. We thought also we had limited time to actually evaluate the complete workflow and the process for the front desk to see why it might be so much different than the other 4 sites of the PTOT centers. So a subject matter expert that really knows the full process flow, like we were able to talk to Donna a little bit, but not completely. So actually someone that can evaluate the whole process from beginning to end for multiple weeks would be something that would really help completely establish what's really going on with the workflow at front desk. One thing, even though with the phone analysis, we did determine that they are not spending necessarily that much time on the phone calls, but all those phone calls that they are getting for insurance authorizations are interrupting their daily flow. So one idea we had is that maybe they could centralize, we kind of played with the idea of them centralizing or using the hospital insurance verification, but the problem with physical therapy is that there's more specific things, like specific modalities that need to be identified, like whether they can get electrical stimulation, iontophoresis. And so we wanted to keep it specific to physical therapy, but we thought maybe they could centralize the insurance verification for all the 5 sites to one person, and that might take away from other people being pulled off the phones in order to do those other tasks. And then lastly, we just thought in general, again, kind of with the grouping the daily tasks, everybody is not doing those daily tasks the same way, and everybody doesn't have the same kind of time management skills or the way they complete the task, which some people might be completing them in an efficient way and others may not be. So also just the people that are doing it effectively and efficiently, maybe either coaching their coworkers on how to do that, or the management stepping in and trying to really get some training and coaching on how they can do those process flows better.
So what did we learn from this project? Well, you can see that it's an expansive process. There's a lot of people involved, and it's kind of difficult to evaluate to improve it unless you have subject matter experts. And we're talking people that understand the process that needs to be done. But you also want to include the experts of the people that it touches, such as IT, the insurance and billing people. They're the experts on what the smaller processes are within the larger process, so you need to get their input as well. It takes a lot of time to understand the process. Like we said, we had limited time on the process. We all have our own jobs at our other centers, so it was very time-consuming for us running out to the other facilities. We did go to the sports mall, incidentally, and we also re-interviewed the front-end staff to get their input, because their input is important as well, not just us observing and trying to analyze what's going on. They have particular ideas of what they think may be the issues involved. And it's, everyone works differently, and it's hard to standardize human behavior, obviously. Some people work more efficient than other people. So you want to take that into consideration too. And that's where we made a recommendation that maybe workflow training, when being more efficient in your task of whatever it is you're doing would be helpful. And the other thing is having the employee input is important, but sometimes the employee is a little too close to the problem. They can't see the forest from the tree, so it's important to have input from others, such as insurance, billing people, that kind of thing, to give a better perspective. And lastly, having an interdisciplinary team from different departments sort of puts fresh eyes on everything, and you can get better ideas that someone else may have not even thought of. And we found that on our team here. We're all from different areas and backgrounds, and I think it was helpful in us trying to analyze this whole process. Again, it's a very large, complicated process. It involves a lot of people, so it takes time and a lot of analysis to come up with a good plan on how to resolve issues.
Any questions?